Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Kent, where our mission is to inspire love, seek justice, and grow together in community. And in the spirit of fostering community, remaining seated, let's briefly turn and greet our neighbors. I'm Kathy Kearns, the service leader, and I'm joined today by Worship Associate Elaine Bowen, Religious Education Director Colleen Taylor, and our Music Director, Emily Hall. It takes a village to bring you this service. We thank all those who are helping with today's service, the musicians, the tech team, those who worked on the order of service and the slides, and our greeters. Thank you for bringing a welcoming presence this morning. Now let's take a moment to breathe, to enter into our time of community, and to invite the Spirit to be with us.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle around to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
For me, and perhaps for you, exposure to dance started early. Preschool, pre-K, you remember the hokey pokey. And then in elementary school, it included square dancing. In my family events, there were lots of polkas. My tween and teen years, I will date myself saying we did the bump and the hustle. And then there were those slow, romantic dances with those I loved. Over the years, dancing is not something I am particularly good at, but I usually can find the rhythm, enjoy myself, and manage to not tread on too many toes. It seems to me that the keys to dancing well are practice and getting to know your partner, learning the steps together, making missteps, correcting them, beginning again, and then more practice. The dance becomes seamless and appears effortless, even though it has taken time, attention, and care to get all those moving pieces to work together. And so it is with the dance of shared ministry with a new professional clergy dance partner. We will get to know our new partner and she, us. We'll find our rhythm, we'll practice, and we'll learn new dances together. Come, let us worship and dance together. The chalice is a symbol of the Unitarian Universalist faith. Lighting the chalice unites us into worship. It reminds us of our search for truth and meaning and inspires hope for a more just and loving world. Our church, this church, stands on the cusp of a change as a new minister will be joining us in September. To honor our past and future ministries, today we light 3 chalices. The glass chalice was used during the ministries of the Reverend Julianne Silberman Bunn and the Reverend Stephen Protzman. The brass chalice was used primarily during the ministry of Reverend Melissa Carville-Zemer. The black metal chalice was gifted to our church this past spring. Each and all of the chalices represent that our path forward as a congregation will always be informed by what came before in our history. As Lee Brooker lights our shared chalices, I invite those on Zoom to light your home chalice. And I invite you also to join me in the words for our chalice lighting. Love is the spirit of this church and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
As Elaine mentioned, in just a handful of weeks, we will be welcoming Reverend Kristina as our new minister. I'm feeling a whole lot of feelings about that, right? Like I'm nervous, I'm excited, I'm nervous. I'm hopeful though. See, I'm a dreamer. And when I think about sharing ministry with someone new, I often start to dream pretty big. And so I chose a book today that speaks to the possibilities that await us when we work together. All of us, with love at the center and dream big. So our book today is What We'll Build, Plans for Our Together Future by Oliver Jeffers. What shall we build, you and I? Let's start by gathering all our tools for putting together and taking apart. Let's build a door where there was none. We'll build a house to be our home. I'll build your future and you'll build mine. We'll build a watch to keep our time. We'll build some love to set aside and build a hole where we can hide. A fortress to keep our enemies out and higher walls for when they shout. But you don't always lose and you don't always win, so we'll build a gate to let them in. We'll build a table to drink our tea and say, I'm sorry. Me too. Me 3. We'll build a tower to watch the sky and other worlds that pass us by. Let's build a tunnel to anywhere. Let's build a road up to the moon. Let's build a comfy place to rest, for we will get tired soon. Let's build a boat that can't be broken, that will not sink or be cracked open. A place to stay when all is lost, to keep the things we love the most. We'll put these favorite things beside the earlier love that we set aside. I think that we may want them later when times are hard and needs are greater. But first things first, let's build a fire, for we've planned a lot and now we're tired. It'll keep us warm like when we're born, then we'll say goodnight and all's all right. These are the things we'll build, you and I. And so I wonder, my friends, what are your plans for our together future? What will we build together? Let's sing our children to their body percussion class today.
Each week, while we are in the presence of one another, we create a time for prayer, reflection, gratitude, or meditation. So let us enter a time of silence. And now, in the spirit of being a community of compassion and care, where we both give and receive care, we take time to share those sorrows and struggles that are in our hearts right now. And if you're on Zoom, please share your sorrows in the chat, and I will read them aloud. Raven shares that she had a stroke Tuesday last week, and she is currently in rehab. Raven, you are in our thoughts and on our hearts, and we send out healing thoughts to you and hope that you have a good recovery from your stroke. Saul Flanner shares a concern that his Uncle Don has been hospitalized with sepsis now for about 3 weeks already. So we send our love out to the whole Flanner Walker family. We're all thinking of all of you as you're all struggling with this difficult illness. And we hope that your Uncle Don continues to work his way through this very serious illness. I offer you these words of prayer. Spirit of life and love, draw near. Embrace us. We live in a world of constant change. Some people come into our lives while others leave. Things we felt were certain or anchors for us may disappear or change. Every week, we read about people whose lives have been upended by war, poverty, climate change, or another calamity. Yet still, some things endure. We are all here to greet another day. There is a hope we give and receive from one another. Flowers still bloom, rainbows still appear, puppies and kittens and babies still delight us. Sources of gratitude abound, even in dark moments. May we find the strength and the suppleness to flow with the changes we experience, knowing we are held in a universal love. Amen. Life also brings joy, wonder, and awe. So let's take a moment to honor those moments that have lifted our spirits. And those on Zoom are welcome to share via the chat. Kevin shares he's just moved into a new place in downtown Peninsula. So here's to new beginnings and new homes. We have a lot of birthdays this week, it turns out, in our congregation. Stella's birthday is coming up this week, as is Jennifer and Lois. So we wish all of them, and anybody else who didn't submit a card, we wish you all a happy birthday this week. And I don't see any joys on Zoom. So we hold these blessings in our hearts with gratitude for the joys that life brings. May you each find a moment of joy in the coming week.
Just begun. Just begun. You are who you're becoming. You are all you have done. You are what you are dreaming. You've only just begun. You are who you're becoming. You are all you have done. You are what you are dreaming. You've only just begun. We are who we're becoming. We are all we have done. We are what we are dreaming. We've only just begun. We are who we're becoming. We are all we have done. We are what we are dreaming.
A few years ago, our church conducted a ministry search that led us to call the Reverend Stephen Protzman as our minister. And as a member of that search committee, I learned a lot about what a church could do to get ready to welcome a new minister. One thing we learned was how important it was for a congregation to be open to a new minister. For that new ministry to be successful, it's important that the minister be given the space and grace to bring themselves and their special gifts to the congregation. Inevitably, the new minister will be different from the prior minister in many ways, and the congregation can expect the new minister to bring new ideas and approaches on how to do ministry. Before Reverend Stephen joined us, the worship team engaged in some activities to help us be ready to work with a new minister. The Worship Associates program had been created by our prior minister, Reverend Melissa. We reflected on our experiences with her, allowed people to express any lingering feelings they had about her leaving, and discussed the fact that our new minister might be different in how he or she approached involving the worship associates in the Sunday morning services. I felt like these experiences had prepared me for working with a new minister. I was ready and eager to partner with Reverend Stephen on worship, or so I thought. See, you all already know where this story is going. Reverend Melissa had the practice of meeting with a worship associate to discuss the service they would be doing together, and she welcomed suggestions for readings for the services. The first time I was a worship associate with Reverend Stephen, I wanted to come prepared, so I asked him, was there anything he wanted me to do in advance, like look for a reading? He said, sure, if you have a reading to suggest, let me know. I came up with a couple of suggestions, which he reviewed, then said he didn't think they would fit. So I read the readings he chose for the service. The next time I was his worship associate, the same thing happened. By the third time I worked on a service with Reverend Stephen, I was feeling a little uncertain about how to work with him. I asked him what he wanted to do, and he said I could write opening words and make a suggestion for a reading. I did, but it turns out that suggested reading was also not quite right for the service. Now I was feeling frustrated and a bit annoyed. Every idea I had of a reading for a service was wrong. But luckily, I also stopped to reflect. And I realized the problem wasn't Reverend Stephen at all. The problem was me. I was expecting him to be like Reverend Melissa and how he worked with the worship associates. But of course, the only person Reverend Stephen could be was himself, and he had his own approach to worship. Once I had this realization, my negative feelings dissipated, and my experience with Reverend Stephen totally changed. I was able to benefit from working with him on worship. We ended up having many interesting conversations about sermon topics, and he mentored me when I struggled with my own sermon writing. A few times, he asked me to read a draft of a sermon and provide feedback, and when I did so, he was responsive to the feedback, and I felt heard and respected. On September 1st, the Reverend Kristina Church will be joining us. In Unitarian Universalist churches, we engage in shared ministry. That is, members share with the minister and the other paid staff the responsibility to carry out the ministries of the church. We are getting a new partner for our dance of shared ministry. Take a moment now to reflect. What expectations will you be bringing about our new minister, and how we will work together to carry out the ministries of our church? Are there things you expect from this new minister based on your experiences with Reverend Stephen or other ministers? How can we open ourselves to the gifts that a new minister will share with us? I invite you now to join in singing our hymn of reflection, One Voice.
This is the sound of one voice, one spirit, one voice, the sound of one who makes a choice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of voices too. The sound of me singing with you, helping each other to make it through. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices three, singing together in harmony, surrendering to the mystery. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of all of us, singing with love and the will to trust. Leave the rest behind, it'll turn to dust. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of one voice, one people, one voice, a song for every one of us. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice.
The Reverend Alea Kemmler offers us this reading, The Church Where Everything Goes Wrong. 6 weeks into the church year, I have realized that I am the minister of church where things usually go wrong. This morning, the copy machine jams repeatedly. The bulletin describing the order of worship has been copied with the second page first and also upside down. No one has remembered to turn on the lights in the sanctuary before the service. And because it is raining outside, it is very dark. The microphone is buzzing, probably because they don't have our great tech team. The microphone is buzzing and every so often lets out a painful, high-pitched squeal that makes people wince. We have just started the service when someone runs up with a bunch of flowers for the altar, just as someone else runs in with one of the silk arrangements we keep for mornings when no one brings real flowers. There is laughter as the two flower bearers meet at the altar. They decide on the real flowers, and things settle down for a while until one of the babies starts crying, which sets off another baby crying. I try to speak over the wailing as their fathers hustle them down the aisle and try to distract them in the back. Usually, I love watching the tall, gentle fathers who bounce their babies in backpacks at the rear of the sanctuary. But today, I am annoyed because I want it to be quiet and holy and lovely, and things are definitely not shaping up that way. The woman who is helping with worship gets up and instead of giving the announcements, introduces the candle lighting time, which comes later. People call out, "Not yet!" More laughter. The organist starts playing the wrong hymn, and a couple of choir members yell over the din for him to stop. A few minutes later, during the period for prayerful silence, he accidentally falls on the keyboard, causing the organ to emit horrible, gassy noises, shrieks and snorts of laughter. All pretense of Sunday morning decorum is lost. And something inside me, some furious, bossy desire to have my worship service go according to my plan, finally slides free, and I laugh with them. This will be the first of many times that I laugh at Sunday morning details gone awry. It is also the first of many times that I imagine God is watching, looking up or down or over or out at us from wherever God sits on Sunday mornings, slightly amazed and maybe at a loss for words, because we, God's people, are so funny and wonderful and odd all at the same time. In moments like these, I imagine God as a sturdy old woman with her hands on her hips, or perhaps a rabbi pulling on his long white beard. I imagine a God shaking his or her head saying, "What in the world are they doing over there? This is what they call church? What were they thinking?" But I also imagine a God who is touched and maybe a little honored by our efforts, however halting, to give worship and praise. I imagine a God who is moved by our attempts to care for one another and to name the things we know as holy. There is a warmth in this congregation that is new to me. A simple friendliness that shines through the fumblings and failures, a love that makes the ragged edges smooth. I have always wanted to believe, really believe, that our mistakes aren't the most important parts of us. I have always wanted to believe that kindness and compassion matter more than anything. I sense I can learn this here.
If we take a moment to reflect back on the recent history of our congregation, I think a theme would be our resilience and our ability to adapt to change. Over the last 2 years, we have been rebuilding ministries that languished during the height of COVID. We've also experimented with changes in our Sunday morning worship, including trying different service times, different formats for services, and adding a second service with a different focus. We also coped with the unexpected loss of our minister. What are some different emotions that you've been feeling about our congregation recently? Feel free to just, in a word, name those emotions. Excitement. Hopeful. Optimistic. Belonging. Appreciative. Curious. Gratitude. Strong. Concerned. Grief. And there it is, all of life, right? We're feeling all those different things. Change can be painful, and we may feel uncomfortable having to adapt to new things and feel sadness about a loss of the old ways. But change is also an opportunity for growth, and we can reflect on what we've learned about our congregation. What might be some of the lessons we've learned about ourselves? I think we've learned that we're willing to experiment and try new things. And this attitude is so important because it shows trust in the leaders and provides them grace as they try to introduce new ideas. We've been reminded of the importance of communication and inclusive decision-making. For example, in the past, the worship team did some consulting with committees before making decisions like changing worship times, but more recently, we've instituted surveys to capture the views from a wider group of congregants. The board has modeled excellent communication, keeping the congregation informed the last few months as we temporarily worked out how we would cover the duties typically done by a minister, adapted our budget, and pursued the hiring of a new minister. We've been grateful to see how dedicated people are to this congregation. People have given their time and attention not just to completing tasks, but to taking care of one another. There is a love that has helped make the ragged edges smooth. And now we welcome a new dance partner to our church. What new dances will Reverend Kristina teach us? How can we keep from stepping on one another's toes as we learn to coordinate our steps and accommodate to one another? What hopes and dreams do we want to pursue together? Perhaps Reverend Kristina's ministry will be a time when we can reflect on our church's current mission, vision, and covenant statements. These are statements of what we see as our purpose as a church, ideas we have for the future, and how we want to be in relationship with one another. We've had many changes as well as many new members since the current statements were created. Do our current statements reflect who we are today? In our eagerness to welcome the new minister, some cautions may be in order. It would be easy to idealize the future. We've been without a minister for a few months, Won't all our problems be solved once we have a minister again? If we're expecting Reverend Kristina to fix everything that needs improvement at our church, we've forgotten the essence of shared ministry. We will be co-creators of our future as we collaborate with the new minister and our wonderful church staff. We may also wonder about what to keep, what to let go of, and change as we welcome a new minister. Must we cast aside past traditions and practices in the name of being welcoming? In my opinion, this is not really necessary. As we weave the story of today, we will always be drawing on our history together as we step into the future. For the chalice lighting, we use 3 different chalices that we have used over the last 30 years. All of them probably have special meaning to somebody in this room. There are songs we have sung, many written by our former longtime music director, Hal Walker, that have deep meaning for many members of our congregation. You will hear one of those songs for the offertory today. We can celebrate and incorporate beloved parts of our church story as long as they do not become stifling or crowd out the possibility of change. As the reading reminds us, things never go perfectly at church. It's worthwhile to reflect on how we want to respond when things go awry. How will we react when someone steps on our toes or suggests we try a new dance step? With humor, patience, and curiosity to understand the other person? Can we let go of perfectionism and be the good enough church that welcomes different ways of doing things and everyone's participation? In this congregation, the last few settled ministers each stayed for several years. There's a comfort and an intimacy that we can feel after having a minister for several years. Now we're starting over again. Relationships, as we all know, take time to develop as they deepen over time. They require patience and grace as we learn how to dance together. And there will always be important boundaries for a minister. As the Reverend Mark Morrison Reed says, the relationship of minister and parishioner has the qualities of a friendship, but no matter how warm and deep and authentic, the relationship is not a sustainable friendship. Why? Because it is built upon an unavoidable imbalance. The minister is always more responsible for the relationship. When necessary, we must be prepared to forsake the role of friend for that of minister, and ready to choose the well-being of the community over the needs of the friend. We are not as free to share all aspects of our lives and ourselves. Nor can we make friends with whom we please, for that would create 2 classes of parishioners, the chosen and the not. Finally, when our ministry comes to an end, so must the relationships, lest we take up space the next ministry needs if it is to take root. Shared ministry really is a dance as we learn to listen and to accommodate to one another. An opportunity for collaboration rooted in mutual care and respect. Coming together to learn and grow. Fellowship and fun as we enjoy one another's company. A time to work together to bring out the best in one another. In closing, I offer you these words from Leslie Avula Fales as a blessing for the next phase of our congregation's journey. All that we have been separately and all that we will become together is stretched out before and behind us like stars scattered across a canvas of sky. We stand at the precipice, arms locked together like tandem skydivers working up the courage to jump. Tell me, friends, what have we got to lose? Our fear of failure, our mistrust of our own talents, what have we got to lose? A poverty of the spirit, the lie that we are alone? What wonders await us in the space between the first leap and the moment our feet are wheels, however we move our bodies across this precious earth, touch down softly on unknown soil? What have we got to lose that we can't replace with some previously unimaginable joy? Blessed are you, Spirit of life, who has sustained us, enlivened us, and enabled us to reach this moment. Give us courage in our leaping and gratitude in our landing, and share with us in the joy of a long and fruitful ministry together.
Will the ushers please come forward? It is with gratitude for each and all that make up this congregation. We're grateful for presence, grateful for voices, grateful for talent, grateful for the generosity of spirit that sustains us. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Are the ones who are walking
And now I invite with you to say with me the words for extinguishing the chalice as we bring our service to the close. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. May we carry these in our hearts and minds until we are together again. And please rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, Let It Be a Dance. And I just have one announcement. So dozens of you have already filled out our interest and talent survey indicating where your interests lie in volunteering at church. And we'll be providing this information for the new minister. So we wanted to invite anybody who's not had a chance to fill out the survey to do so. We have copies of it at a table in the back today. Or if you even just want to come and talk to a member of the leadership development team about what the opportunities are here, we're happy to have a conversation as well. Our benediction is by Adam Slate.
We end our gathering with gratitude for camaraderie, shared wisdom, goodwill, and support that we extend to each other within this community.
May we continue to bless each other with these gifts, and may we reflect these blessings back out into the world as we minister to those around us. Go in peace.
And dads.